G'day fantasy sports fans, me and Bales today are going to take you through our top 10 Dynasty Rucks for the 2024 season. Welcome to GameDay Squad's YouTube channel. As I just hinted at, I've got my good friend Bales with me today to go through some rankings. Bales, mate, how you going? It's been a minute, but I'm stoked to have you back. How you going?
Thanks, mate. Yeah, going good. To the viewers, probably haven't seen me since then. We actually recorded the mid-episode, but the whole recording stuffed up. So unfortunately, but that's all right. You got Kerm, and he's a good replacement for me. No, he's better. No, Kerm's better than me, mate. Love Kerm. But looking forward to chatting some rucks here today, and very interesting list we got. We've got pretty similar, which is good. So good to know that I'm thinking along the same lines as you, and looking forward to getting stuck in.
Let's do it. Without further ado, what we're going to do, we're going to reveal our 10 to 6 ranks first. We're going to talk through a couple of them, and then, of course, we'll go through our top 5 from there. But, Bales, we're going to flick it over right now. The viewers can now see your 10 to 6 selections and my 10 to 6, mate. As you hinted at, very similar. A couple different names, though, here. I've got the Big O in my list. You got Tristan Xerri in yours. Did you want to talk about anyone in particular that you've selected here?
Not really too much with sort of these bottom 5, just because I guess if you're looking at sort of single season, whether it be GameDay Squad or one of the other fantasy formats that you're playing, is that these 5 aren't necessarily guys that you're going to be looking at starting straight away. I think the one that probably sticks out is Tristan Xerri, and the reason I've got him at number 9 there, and probably Dynasty Rankings, I'd almost have potentially a couple of spots higher, depending on how he goes this season. Obviously, with Goldstein leaving to go to the Bombers, it means that Tristan Xerri is the solo guy there for them this season. I'm actually just getting up his age, like Tristan Xerri, because I don't think he's that old. I think he's still got plenty of footy to go. So Tristan Xerri
24 is he? I think he's 24.
It is not coming on my phone.
See.
Yeah, it's like 24 or something like that. So he's still got plenty of footy ahead, and he's sort of just entering his prime, and he's now got that added responsibility of now being the number one guy, obviously with Goldie there and sharing the ruck. So I would have him there, and I think that he could be a bit of a steal if you sort of do any draft sort of formats that maybe a few people are just looking at maybe average, and they haven't looked quite into sort of what's happened at North Melbourne. So I think that he will be a pretty good selection this year. And the other guys around him, sort of like some of the older guys that you got, like Jarrod Witts is there. Obviously, he's 29 as well. Then you've got Riley O'Brien there at 31. Wait, no, Riley O'Brien 31. I don't think Riley O'Brien's 31. Oh, no, that's 31 for Jarrod Witts. Okay,
Witts
sorry.
Is 31.
Yeah, I'm looking at screen. Witts is 31. O'Brien's, I think, 27 or something like that. So he's a solid pick as well for the Crows, but there's been rumours of Riley Thilthorpe taking a little bit more ruck time from him there. Sean Darcy would be good, but we sort of just don't quite know. He got a long contract, but is he really going to see out the whole contract? And Luke Jackson's there as well. So I think out of those bottom, I think Tristan Xerri's probably my pick. Nank is good as well for if you just want a solid guy there. So him and Xerri are probably those two there. Who are your favourites from your bottom 5? Obviously, you've got, as you said, you've got the Big O there. You've got obviously O'Brien, Witts, Darcy and Nank. So who would be your sort of favourite guy that you've got there that you'd be maybe targeting as like if you miss one of those top 5?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I'll go first of all. Let's start from the bottom. I've got 2 that I sort of wanted to identify in this range. The first one being Jarrod Witts. You just touched on him, 31 years old, 101 at GameDay Squad, fantasy average per game last season. Cracks in at number 8 for me. And, this guy loves a head out. He's a big smoky in regards to starting him ever in your squad. And let's be honest, on a week-to-week basis, Bales, that you hinted at before, you're not going to be looking at these players within this range too often to come in and do a job. But I do think Witts will have some monster performances in him this year, and he could be a point of difference player you might want to target in some particular weeks. What I would be doing personally, I'll be looking at his schedule, trying to identify some easier matchups where Witts could start in your squad. There's not going to be a ton of them, so the opportunities will be quite thin, but there could be a point of the season where Witts could be a go for your fantasy squad. His averages last year, again, they're not eye-popping. 7.2 kicks per game, 6.6 handballs, 39 hitouts though. So as I said, nothing that's screaming out he's a stud, but I think he rightfully deserves to be on this list. And number 8 is quite fair ranking in my eyes because he's got that pod potential.
You make a good point there as well with that. I was going to say you make a good point there as well with the good matchups, because I think that rucks and key forwards, especially in GameDay Squad, because you can change your squad every week, like at the end of the round, and looking for matchups is so important, because I think midfielders, majority of people are going to have the same five, or if you've got most of midfield, or they might take out a certain player if the player's going to get tagged, whereas the forwards and the rucks can change quite a bit week to week, and I think you make a good point that if Witts has got a great matchup, that could be a good point of difference to put, because if English comes up against, let's say, Max Gawn, and Witts is coming up against, I don't know, my West Coast or Port Adelaide, because they were easier for rucks last year, for example. We don't know what they're going to be like this year, but then you can target that sort of matchup, maybe get an extra 20, 30 points. That could be all the difference between you finishing in the top 10 for the week, top 20, top 50, whatever sort of goal you're looking for. That could be the difference. So it's a good point you raise there, I think.
Yeah, thanks, Bales. And I agree, as you were just saying. The point of difference players are truly the difference when you're looking at your week to week, trying to get in those rewards, cracking the top 10. But let's go to the second player. The second player I wanted to identify and talk about here is Sean Darcy. Now, in my personal opinion, he was the hardest player to rank out of all the rucks in my eyes, because he's the second youngest player on my list, firstly. He's coming in at 25 years old, 104.5 fantasy average per game for last year. His numbers, let's go through them now. 6.3 kicks, 7.5 handballs, 3.4 marks, 3.2 tackles, and 39 hitouts. So monstrous with all the hitouts. The thing that he's missing for me is the opportunity to own the ruck spot. He's splitting duties with Luke Jackson currently, and this just really hurts Darcy's fantasy potential. Could this change in the future? Definitely. And if it does, we could see Sean Darcy shoot up coaches' ranks in terms of their rankings for rucks in an instant. As it is right now, with the outlook of the season in front of me, I think Sean Darcy is worthy of his 7th ranked position, and I can't see it changing unless something drastic happens. So yeah, they're the two players I wanted to highlight. It's really unfortunate because Sean Darcy, when you look at him play, he's got talent, he's got what it takes. It just seems like he wants or deserves that opportunity. It's just unfortunate that, he's at Freo and he's there splitting the duties. So yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with that as well. And the good thing is, again, with GameDay Squad, is that you can change your lineup every week based on matchups. You can change your whole squad if you want to. And if Darcy's got good matchups, you play him. The point I'm making is because he's got an injury history, he's injury prone, from what we've seen. And if he gets injured, it's fine, because like you had to change your ruck anyway, whereas in your actual trading formats it might be a bit more difficult to start a guy like Darcy. But in GameDay Squad, I think 7's a good rank for him, and he could have some big games for your squad this year for sure.
Yeah, love it, mate. But I think that starts us off quite nicely with the ranks. But I think it's time to move on, Bales. I want to know your 1 to 5. I'm sure you want to know my 1 to 5. What I think we do. Let's flick it over in 3, 2, 1. Now everyone can see our rankings. Quickly have a look. And they're the exact same. Our 1 to 5 are the exact same.
Which is good, because it means we're thinking along the same path, so which is nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Mate, is there anyone that you wanted to highlight in particular within this 1 to 5 range, and tell the viewers?
Yeah, I think that if I was looking, so these are probably more looking at the top 5. The way I've got them ranked is probably looking more at the season ranks. So for this season, I think Dynasty, I think I'd almost move Briggs to potentially 3, just because with Dynasty you're going to have the players sort of for their whole career essentially, and obviously Gawn being 32 and Brodie Grundy being 29, they're sort of coming to, Gawn obviously back up part of his career and obviously still playing such high level, and Grundy, bit of an unknown, but Sydney we expect him to go well, but then again he's 29, it's not like he's got another 10 years left, but you never know, he might, but unlikely compared to someone like Kieran Briggs, who probably has got about 10 years left because he's 24, he's taken over that number 1 ruck role at GWS. Obviously Bruce is there, but I think Briggs has clearly shown that he's the more reliable guy there, and he can play more than 5 games in a row, which is good for the Giants, because with Bruce he can't play 5 games in a row, or he hasn't shown that that yet in his career. So Briggs showed last year, had that big breakout. They obviously started with Flynn, and then obviously Bruce wasn't there, so they brought Briggsy in, and he did well. And it shows the confidence Giants have got in Briggs as their number one ruck for at least the foreseeable future, because they actually traded away Matt Flynn. So they're clearly showing that they've got all the confidence with him. So that's why I'd actually probably move into it like a number 3 in Dynasty. But I'll keep the order I have, because I still do like Grundy at Sydney. I think he's going to have a good year and a bounce back year. He's got a chip on his shoulder, and he's obviously against his 2 former sides in the first 2 weeks in Melbourne in the opening round, and then he's got Collingwood in round 1. So I'm sure he'll go well. And Matt's Gawn, we know how good he is when he's solo ruck, obviously averaging well in excess of 110 game day squad points when he is solo. So I'm looking forward to seeing what both those guys do as the solo rucks. I'll probably leave the top 2 to talk about in a sec, but what are your thoughts on those other 3 guys? So like your Gawn, Grundy and Briggs, do you sort of got high hopes for all 3 of them this year, and players that game day squad coaches should be looking to at least have in their club, if not in their lineups?
Yeah, okay. For Briggs, I'll start off with him. I think you covered it then. He's exactly what the Giants were looking for. Strong ruck. He's going to work from contest to contest, help their team gain the advantage at every stoppage. He's the youngest player on this list at 24. 105 game day squad fantasy average for last season. I think that's why I have him at 5th, in all honesty, is that his average is a little bit lower than I think the other rucks. But, for me, I'll continue to explain, because, again, his numbers, he's not a player that you're going to look at and they don't scream at you, but he does just a little bit of everything. He's entering his 4th season, and you hinted at he's locked down this starting ruck role for the Giants. 2023, for me, was a cheeky appetizer for what's to come for Kieran Briggs. So, if your scoring foundation is 105 fantasy points, I can't wait to see this thing grow into something special. This is why he's got my 5th spot in my rankings, and he's definitely a player I'd be targeting in game day squad, because he has dynasty value, and the most dynasty value out of the rucks in the top 5 here. Brodie Grundy, mate, my Swanee. I can't tell you how excited I was when we signed Big Grundy. It's a hole that we have needed to fill, and a void that we've needed to rectify for a long time. The Sydney Swans answered my cries for help. Someone can only deal with watching a position fail so miserably throughout a season. There gets to a point, I was at that breaking point, and clearly, you rang up the club. You rang up the club and said, sign Grundy. It wasn't Grundy, it was anyone else, in all honesty, yeah. But Grundy was a great selection that they could have gone with. He was the former Demon, former Collingwood star. He's here now to save your fantasy team. Swans finished second last in hitouts last season. Grundy is a player throughout a 6-year span in his career. He averaged 35.3 hitouts per game, averaging 17 disposals per game throughout his entire career. This includes his slower start and his time with the Demons. So he is someone that realistically could compete for the number 1 spot in 2024. The only issue is, and why I don't have him higher, he's 29 years old, as you hinted at before. For me, with this Brodie Grundy situation, if there's a year that he's going to get back to his best, it's essentially now or never. So if we don't see it this year, I don't ever see him getting back to that level that he was at with Collingwood. But, he had the lowest average in my list for 2023 at 85 per game. He's cracking the top 5 for me this season. So if that alone doesn't tell you something about the potential that Brodie Grundy has with the Sydney Swans this season, then I'm not sure what to tell you. Grundy's someone you're going to want. I'm really excited for Grundy's season, especially as a Swans fan, not even as a fantasy coach, but even more so as a fantasy coach, because, it's very easy to fall for the top 2, but Grundy's going to be a player that will set some coaches apart throughout this year, and I'm sure of that. Yeah, I'll quickly talk about Gawny. I think the thing is, 32 years old with the Demons, 106.4 average per game. I think you alluded to it before, when Gawn is a solo ruck and, he gets the minutes essentially that he deserves, he's more around that 120 game day squad fantasy average. So he's definitely, in my opinion, going to take a considerable leap, but He is just ahead of Brodie Grundy for me. I had Grundy at 4, Briggs at 5. Gawn is coming in at 3 because I feel like he's a little bit safer. But if you're looking at this, in a more dynasty perspective, you probably want to go with your Brodie Grundys and Kieran Briggs. But although these are dynasty rankings, I definitely did put strong consideration into the win now aspect of this list because I do also want people to look at this and be like, these are the players I should be targeting. And I think we did quite a good job each as we are the exact same in the top 5. We're both thinking the same way. Good win now consideration, but also these are great dynasty options as well. So yeah, my season for Gawn, I think he's going to show us what he's made of. He's going to get back to his best. I'm just worried about the longevity of his best. So yeah.
And we got our top 2, which is the exact same as well. I'll probably speak about Marshall because I'll let you speak about your boy, English. I know a lot of people that were watching GameDay Squad last year were knowing that you're English man. But Ryan Marshall, I think there's a realistic chance he could be the number 1 scoring ruck this year over Tim English in GameDay Squad. I think for the single season, but I think that with Dynasty Rank, I think because they're both so close, English and Marshall, like how well they went last year, 134.4 average for English in GameDay Squad last year, 133 for Marshall, so both were great picks. And a lot of coaches had both and were able to rotate between the two based on matchup. But I think because they're so close, I think English is a couple of years younger, better probably Dynasty asset just because he will be the number 1 guy back there, whereas St Kilda have been known to maybe throw a few things around. Maybe Max Heath comes in and makes his debut at some point over the next few seasons. Obviously, Jack Hayes is there, whereas English has really got known. I know there's this talk about Rory Lobb racking. I just don't really see it happening. So, yeah, I think English at number 1. But, yeah, Marshall, we saw how good his ceiling was last year. Had some massive, massive games. And he's got a pretty high floor as well, which is good. And same with English. So I think that both are going to be pretty much neck and neck, and Gawn and Grundy aren't going to be too far behind here. I think that's why we were sort of hoping that, I was hoping maybe one of Gawn or Grundy would get forward status, not only in the AFL Fantasy and that, but also in GameDay Squad as well. That would have been nice if cheeky Grundy got forward status, then you'd be less options and you won't have to stress each week. But no, I think that all 4 good options, and yeah, Marshall is going to be one that is probably almost going to be a bit of a pod out of these 3 because a lot of people are going to go English because of obviously we did last year. A lot of people are going to go Gawn because he's now the solo ruck, and people assume he's going to go back to 110, which a 110 plus, which I think he definitely can, especially in GameDay Squad. So, but yeah, I think Marshall could be a little bit forgotten in a way, but I still think he'll be a high scorer. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what he does this year.
Yeah, love it, man. And the best thing, or at least the reason why I think this conversation is so important, is that this year in GameDay Squad, you have 2 ruck positions that you need to fill. So you're not just going to be playing 1 and having them starting. You've got 2. So it is really important to distinguish the 2 that you want to go with, because I feel like that's going to make and break people's teams. You can play this set and forget mindset from last year and just look at the averages, or you can really break this down, look at some of the matchups that are going to come up. And, I think that's going to be the difference between coaches who are average and coaches that excel week in and week out. But for me, I feel like I can feel the angels coming down on me. I can hear the song. Timmy English, the man, the GOAT, the leader of English gang. He is truly built different. He's everything you want in a ruckman for fantasy and more. The way he gets involved in the game through passages of play, strong hands, pushes forward and also rests forwards at time. Why is that good? He has a really great set shot and has a knack for scoring some sausage rolls. He finished last season as the highest scoring or highest goal-kicking ruckman in the entire competition, which I think is another thing. Goes a little bit unnoticed about Timmy English. He's the 3rd youngest player on this list, so his dynasty value is impeccable. He had the highest average out of all the rucks from last season, leading with 134.4 per game. For a section of last season, he had the highest average score in the entire league, but it's okay because he still finished as 3rd overall, which, English gang will take that. We want it a little bit better. We'll take 3rd overall, 3rd best player. I think it's quite fair. I could go through his numbers, but I don't think I need to, and I think I've already said enough. Tim English is the best option for you to have at your ruck position. The only thing that I think you need to work out this year is who's going to be accompanying him in that bench spot for GameDay Squad. Start your teams with English. English gang, represent. I want to see some comments down in the chat because you already know what it's about. I'm excited. You know where my boy's going to be. He's going to be smack bang in the middle of my field. I can't wait.
Yeah, mate, he's in for another good year, I think. So, yeah, he's good. He's not a ruckman. He's a midfielder. That's probably the best way to sum him up because he does everything: kicks goals, gets touches, gets marks, tackles. He does it all. So he's pretty much that sort of prototype ruckman. I think a lot of teams are trying to get towards in this day and age of footy, try and get that extra midfielder. I think Grundy was the one that sort of almost first started it, really. I know, obviously, Dean Cox back in the day was a bit like that as well, but Brodie Grundy really started it, and then obviously you got English now is almost sort of moulded a bit better, almost a bit better.
In a sense.
Yeah, and perfected it. So, he's really, really very, very good. So I can understand why you're a big fan of Tim English. Imagine if Sydney got him. Imagine if Sydney got him, Grundy, we wouldn't be speaking here for a couple of weeks because you'd be probably out partying every night.
Bales, don't start me. I don't even want to have that thought because I'm happy with Brodie Grundy. But you are right. And you know one thing that I missed? I think I haven't looked this up. I haven't fact checked it, but I'm pretty certain in saying this. Tim English is the only ruck to have a kick in from last year as well. I don't know if you remember that game.
Yes, I do.
Kicked it in. But that's the type of player we're talking about. But Bales, that's our top 10. GameDay Squad, Dynasty Rucks for your 2024 season. I want to thank you very much, firstly, for taking the time out of your day and coming here. Fingers crossed this file isn't corrupted and we're going to release a banger for everyone to watch and listen to. But Bales, mate, you're doing some great stuff in the fantasy community. Firstly, how's your preseason been going yourself? And secondly, where can everyone find you and all the content that you're doing as well?
Mate. Thanks for having me on as always. Pre-season really obviously ramping up now. We're not too far away from actually seeing some games of footy in pre-season, which is good. And then obviously we've got opening round, then we lead into the season. So it's going to come very, very quickly. Just smashing out all these head-to-head videos, which you can find all the episodes of them on Truly Bells HD on YouTube, having some amazing guests from the fantasy community. I love the fantasy community. It's so good. Everyone's happy to collaborate and jump on a pod or jump on an episode or something, which is fantastic. So there's plenty of good episodes. There'll be up to, I think, about 25 in the series. We're posting 12 on the day we're recording today. So it'll obviously be, I think, the day this releases, which will be next, the Friday following this recording. I think it'll be episode like 15 or something. So we've had about 10 episodes after that. So make sure you get around that. Like, subscribe, and all that stuff on that channel. And then I'm at BuzzDT on Twitter, Instagram. So go and follow me across those. And then AFL Fantasy Fans is where you can find AFL Fantasy Fanatics on Twitter, and then AFL Fantasy Fanatics wherever you get your podcasts. And as we ramp up towards the season, obviously you'll be back for the AFLW season once the men's season has commenced. So make sure you guys get around all that good stuff and appreciate everyone's support. And it's always good to get on and chat some GameDay Squad.
Yeah, thank you very much, mate. All of those links that Bales was just alluding to will be down below in the description, so don't stress if you couldn't quite hear it all. Just give it a click, go give him a follow, go watch his stuff. It is great content. But all right, Bales, I think that's going to wrap us up. Again, this is the Rucks episode of our Dynasty Rankings. Next, I have the Defenders, and I have another special guest coming on to the show for it. So I guess we're going to check out for now. We'll catch all your legends later. And I'll see you in the next video. See you, everyone.